Before this month ends, something is about to shift in your life in a way you never expected. Before this month ends, the tears you cried in silence will become the reason you smile in public. Before this month ends, the doors that stayed shut will open without you forcing them. Before this month ends, God is going to shock you in a way that leaves no doubt it was Him. There are moments in life when everything feels delayed, when prayers seem unanswered, when effort feels unnoticed, and when you quietly wonder if heaven has forgotten your name. But what you must understand is that delay is not denial and silence is not absence, because the same God who formed the stars and set the oceans in their boundaries has not lost track of your situation. And while you have been watching the calendar hoping for change, heaven has been arranging details you cannot yet see, moving people you have not met, softening hearts you thought were impossible, closing doors that would have destroyed you and preparing opportunities that will elevate you. And the shock that is coming is not random luck, it is the result of divine timing aligning with your endurance. Because sometimes God allows the pressure to build so that when the breakthrough happens it is undeniable, so that you will know it was not your strength alone but His power working behind the scenes. And before this month ends you may receive a call you did not expect, an approval you thought was impossible, an answer to a prayer you whispered when no one was around. And it will feel sudden to you, but it will not be sudden in heaven because it has been in preparation for longer than you realize. And the struggle you faced was not wasted, it was shaping your character so that you could handle the blessing without losing yourself. Because unprepared success can destroy a person faster than failure ever could, so the waiting season was building humility, patience, discernment, and resilience inside you, and while you felt overlooked, God was strengthening your foundation, and now the foundation is strong enough to support what is about to be placed upon it, and the shock will not just be in provision but in peace, because sometimes the greatest miracle is not money or fame but the sudden calm that replaces anxiety, the clarity that replaces confusion, the courage that replaces fear, and you will wake up one morning before this month ends and realize that the heaviness is gone, that the constant worry has lifted, that your heart feels lighter, and you will understand that something shifted spiritually before it manifested physically. And that is how God often works. He changes the atmosphere before He changes the circumstance. He transforms the inner world before He transforms the outer world. And you have been praying for visible change while heaven has been working on invisible roots, and roots matter because what grows fast without roots falls fast under pressure, but what is deeply rooted can withstand storms, and you have survived storms you once thought would break you, you have cried nights you never told anyone about, you have carried burdens silently so others would not worry. And heaven has recorded every tear, every sacrifice, every act of obedience when it would have been easier to quit. And before this month ends there will be a sign that your endurance was not in vain, a confirmation that your faith was not foolish, a reminder that God rewards those who continue to trust Him even when results are not immediate, and the shock may come in a form you did not anticipate. Because God rarely works inside the small box of our limited expectations, He is able to do far beyond what you imagine, and sometimes we limit miracles by defining them too narrowly, expecting one specific outcome while heaven prepares something better, and what is coming may look different than what you pictured, but it will fit your life more perfectly than your original plan ever could, and you will look back at the closed doors and realize they were protection. You will look back at the rejection and realize it was redirection. you will look back at the delay and realize it was divine alignment, and the people who underestimated you may be the very ones who are surprised at how quickly things turned around. But the turnaround will not be about proving them wrong, it will be about fulfilling what God placed inside you long ago, because there is purpose woven into your existence that cannot be erased by setbacks, and the enemy may have tried to discourage you with repeated disappointments, whispering that nothing will change, that this is as good as it gets, that you should lower your expectations and accept less. But before this month ends, that narrative will be shattered, and you will see movement where there was stagnation, opportunity where there was lack, favor where there was resistance, and even if the full manifestation takes longer, you will receive a clear indication that the season has shifted, because God often sends a small sign before a major breakthrough, a seed before a harvest, a spark before a fire, and you must not despise small beginnings, because the same God who can part seas can also use small steps to create massive transformation. And the shock will not just be external but internal, because you will notice your mindset changing, your confidence rising, your boundaries strengthening, your standards elevating, and sometimes the greatest blessing is becoming the version of yourself that no longer tolerates what once drained you, and before this month ends you may walk away from something that has been holding you back, not in anger but in clarity, understanding that your peace is more valuable than temporary comfort, and that obedience sometimes requires difficult decisions, but difficult decisions often unlock powerful doors, and as you step into alignment, opportunities will begin to recognize you, because favor follows obedience, and while you were trying to figure everything out, God was orchestrating connections that will accelerate your journey, and a conversation can change a life, a meeting can open a door, a single opportunity can shift your trajectory. And you may think it is coincidence, but deep down you will know it is divine appointment, and before this month ends you will feel a renewed sense of hope that cannot be explained by current circumstances, because hope itself is a gift, a signal that something better is on the horizon, and the shock may not be loud or dramatic but deeply personal, tailored specifically to your needs. Because God does not bless generically, He blesses intentionally, and what shocks you may be small to someone else but monumental to you, and that is what makes it sacred. And do not be surprised if reconciliation happens where you thought separation was permanent, or if restoration appears in areas you considered lost. Because nothing is too broken for God to repair if it aligns with His will, and even if restoration does not look like returning to the past, it may look like replacing the past with something healthier and stronger, and that too is a miracle, and before this month ends you will see evidence that your prayers have been heard, even the ones you forgot you prayed. Because sometimes answers arrive long after the request but precisely when you are ready to receive them, and readiness is often built through waiting, and waiting is not wasted time when it is shaping your soul, and you may have felt forgotten but you were being formed, you may have felt stuck but you were being strengthened, you may have felt delayed but you were being directed, and now the direction is becoming clearer. And the shock will remind you that God's timing is not your timing but it is always purposeful. And as the month draws to a close you will sense urgency in the spirit, not panic but expectancy, as if something is aligning behind the scenes, and instead of focusing on what has not happened yet, you will begin to thank God in advance for what is on its way, because gratitude before manifestation is a sign of deep faith, and faith has a way of attracting fulfillment, and when the breakthrough comes you will not just celebrate the result, You will appreciate the journey, because the journey refined you. It exposed your weaknesses and taught you to depend on God more fully, and dependence is not weakness but wisdom, and the shock that is coming will strengthen your testimony, giving you a story that encourages others who are currently in the waiting phase, and you will be able to say with confidence that God did it, not perfectly on your schedule but perfectly in His plan, and before this month ends something will shift that marks the beginning of a new chapter, and even if the full story unfolds over time, the turning point will happen sooner than you think, so hold on, keep believing, keep preparing as if the blessing is certain, because expectation creates space for miracles, and when it happens, when the news arrives, when the door opens, when the burden lifts, when the peace settles in, you will look back at this moment and realize that the promise was true, that before this month ended, God shocked you in the most beautiful and undeniable way. And that shock will not be meant to startle you into fear but to awaken you into gratitude, to remind you that heaven is active, that your life is guided, that your story is still being written, and the author has not finished the most powerful chapter yet, so stay ready, stay faithful, and watch what happens before this month ends. Even now, as you are listening to this message, there are things shifting that you cannot physically see, conversations happening that do not include your name yet somehow are about to benefit you. Decisions being made in rooms you have never entered that will open doors you once prayed for, and what feels ordinary today will soon become the testimony you repeat with amazement, because before this month ends the atmosphere around your life is going to change in a way that makes you realize that God was never late, He was precise, and precision often feels like delay to those who do not see the full blueprint, but heaven sees the end from the beginning, and while you were focused on surviving each day, God was preparing you for something that requires strength, maturity, and deeper faith than you had before, and the very pressure you resented was increasing your capacity to handle the blessing that is coming, because a small container cannot hold a large outpouring, and God will always expand you before He expands your circumstances, and that expansion sometimes feels uncomfortable, like being stretched beyond your limits, like carrying responsibilities you did not ask for, like facing battles you did not expect. But those battles were training grounds, not punishments, and you are stronger now than you were at the start of this month, even if you do not fully recognize it yet, and that strength is part of the shock, because when the opportunity appears you will step into it with a confidence that surprises even you, and you will realize that the season of insecurity is ending, that the voice of doubt is losing its volume, that the fear that once controlled your decisions no longer has the same power. And before this month ends you may find yourself doing something you were once too afraid to attempt, sending the message, submitting the application, starting the project, having the conversation, setting the boundary, and that bold action will align perfectly with the breakthrough God has already arranged, because faith without action remains incomplete, and sometimes the miracle is waiting for your step of obedience, and when you move, heaven responds. And you will notice how quickly things begin to fall into place once you decide to trust God fully instead of partially, and partial trust produces partial peace, but full trust produces unshakable stability, and stability is what you are stepping into, a season where you are no longer easily shaken by opinions, delays, or temporary setbacks, because your confidence will no longer be rooted in circumstances but in the character of God, and that is a foundation storms cannot destroy. And do not be surprised if the people who once ignored you begin to notice you, if the opportunities that once seemed out of reach suddenly become accessible, if the rejection letters turn into acceptance calls, because favor can shift public perception overnight, and what took years to build can accelerate in days when God decides it is time, and acceleration is part of the shock, because you may look at the calendar and wonder how so much changed in such a short period. But what you call sudden is often the visible result of invisible preparation, and preparation has been happening in your life longer than you think, through lessons learned the hard way, through humility gained from mistakes, through wisdom developed from painful experiences, and none of it was wasted, not even the detours, not even the heartbreaks, not even the moments you questioned everything, because those moments deepened your relationship with God in ways comfort never could, and depth is what sustains long-term blessing. And before this month ends you will sense that depth turning into direction, that clarity replacing confusion, that purpose becoming sharper, and you will feel less scattered, less anxious about the future, less desperate for quick fixes, because when God shocks you it often comes with a peace that confirms it is from Him, not chaotic excitement but steady assurance, not frantic energy but calm confidence, and that calm confidence will guide your next steps, helping you make wiser decisions, choose healthier relationships, manage resources more responsibly, and protect the blessing instead of sabotaging it. And the shock may also involve exposure, because sometimes before elevation comes revelation, and anything hidden that has been working against you may be brought to light, not to embarrass you but to free you, because truth always creates room for growth, and when truth surfaces you will be able to move forward without hidden weights slowing you down. And do not fear exposure when God is the one allowing it, because He exposes to heal, not to harm, and healing is part of the transformation that is unfolding, and you may notice emotional wounds closing faster than expected, resentment fading, forgiveness becoming easier, and that internal healing will position you for external increase, because unhealed pain can distort blessings, but healed hearts can steward them well, and before this month ends you may experience restoration in areas you had quietly given up on. Maybe not exactly as you imagined but in a way that proves God still cares about the details of your life, and details matter to Him, from your financial concerns to your family struggles to your personal dreams that you rarely speak about. Nothing is too small or too complicated for His involvement, and the shock will remind you of that intimacy, that personal attention from a God who sees you individually, not as a number in a crowd but as a beloved creation with unique purpose. And as you step into these final days of the month, shift your expectation from doubt to anticipation, because what you expect influences how you respond, and if you expect disappointment you may miss the opportunity, but if you expect favor you will recognize it when it appears, and recognition is crucial, because sometimes blessings arrive disguised as responsibility, disguised as hard work, disguised as unfamiliar territory, and only those who are spiritually alert will see the gift inside the challenge. And you are becoming more spiritually alert, more discerning, more aware of what aligns with your purpose and what distracts from it, and that awareness will protect your next level, and when the shock comes it will not feel like chaos but confirmation, as if something inside you says this is it, this is what you have been prepared for, this is why the waiting was necessary, this is why the tears were not wasted. And you will understand that every no was leading to a better yes, every closed door guiding you to the right entrance. Every delay synchronizing events you could not control, and before this month ends you will have a reason to lift your head higher, to breathe easier, to believe deeper, because the evidence of God's movement will be undeniable in your life, and even if others cannot fully see what has changed, you will know, you will feel it, you will walk differently, speak differently, think differently, because transformation has taken place within you. And that inner transformation is the foundation for everything external that is about to unfold, so remain steady, remain grateful, remain faithful in these final days, because the same God who carried you through the first part of this month is about to surprise you in the closing chapter, and when it happens you will not only celebrate the blessing but also the builder, recognizing that before this month ended, God moved in a way that shocked you, strengthened you, and positioned you for a future far greater than you imagined. As this month moves closer to its final days, you may feel a strange mixture of exhaustion and expectation, like you have been carrying so much for so long yet something inside you refuses to give up. And that feeling is not accidental, it is the quiet signal that breakthrough is nearer than your doubts want you to believe, because often the greatest shifts happen when you're tempted to think nothing is changing, and before this month ends God is going to move in a way that makes the struggle make sense. Not because every question will be answered but because the outcome will speak louder than the confusion ever did. And you will begin to understand that what felt like isolation was actually insulation, protection from influences that would have distracted or damaged you, and what felt like rejection was redirection toward spaces where your gifts are valued and your presence is respected. And the shock that is coming will not just adjust your circumstances but recalibrate your perspective, causing you to see your past not as a series of unfortunate events but as a sequence of divine setups preparing you for elevation, and elevation requires separation, and separation often feels lonely, but loneliness can be a classroom where God teaches you to rely on Him instead of leaning entirely on people who may not always understand your path, and in that classroom you learned resilience. You learned how to encourage yourself, you learned how to stand firm when validation was absent. And those lessons are about to pay off, because before this month ends you will step into an environment that demands the strength you developed in private, and what once felt like hidden preparation will become visible confidence, and people will notice something different about you, a steadiness, a clarity, a quiet authority that was forged in the fire of waiting, and you will realize that the fire did not destroy you, it refined you, removing insecurity, burning away unhealthy attachments, strengthening your faith, and refinement always precedes reward, and reward is not always material but it is always meaningful, and the meaning behind what is coming will be deeply personal. Because God knows the areas where you felt most discouraged, the dreams you almost buried, the prayers you whispered with trembling hope, and He is intentional about restoring hope exactly where it was weakened, and that restoration may arrive through unexpected channels. Perhaps through someone who re-enters your life with changed behavior, perhaps through a stranger who becomes a key connection, perhaps through an opportunity that aligns perfectly with your long-held vision, and when it happens you will sense divine fingerprints all over it, because it will fit too precisely to be coincidence, and before this month ends you may witness a sudden alignment of timing, resources, and support that confirms you are not walking alone. An alignment is powerful because when the right elements come together at the right moment momentum builds quickly, and momentum is part of the Shock, because things that once required excessive effort will begin to flow more naturally. Conversations will be smoother, decisions clearer, pathways less complicated, and you will know that grace is operating in your favor. And grace does not mean absence of effort but presence of assistance, divine assistance that amplifies your steps and multiplies your impact. And you will look back at the earlier days of this month and see the contrast clearly, how heavy it felt, how uncertain it seemed, and you will marvel at how quickly the atmosphere shifted once the appointed time arrived. And do not underestimate the power of appointed times. Because God works within seasons, and every season has a purpose, and the purpose of this past stretch may have been pruning, removing what could not grow with you into the next chapter, and pruning is painful because it involves loss, but loss is sometimes necessary to create room for healthier growth, and before this month ends you will see evidence that what was removed made space for something better, something more aligned, something more sustainable. And sustainability matters because temporary excitement cannot replace lasting fulfillment, and what God is preparing for you is not a fleeting high but a stable blessing, one that you can build upon rather than constantly fight to maintain, and stability will bring a new level of peace into your life. A peace that does not depend on constant external validation but flows from internal assurance that you are exactly where you need to be, and that assurance will empower you to move differently, to speak with more conviction, to set clearer boundaries, to pursue goals with renewed focus, and that focused energy will accelerate results, because scattered attention slows progress but aligned intention speeds it up, and before this month ends you will likely experience a moment of realization, a quiet but powerful awareness that you have crossed an invisible line from surviving to advancing, from barely holding on to intentionally moving forward. And that crossing may not be announced with loud celebration but it will be deeply felt in your spirit, and you will sense that the tide has turned, that the resistance you once felt is weakening, that the path ahead is opening, and even if challenges remain they will no longer intimidate you the same way because you will have tangible proof that God is actively involved in your journey, and that proof strengthens faith more than any motivational speech ever could, and faith strengthened by experience becomes unshakable. And unshakable faith positions you to handle even greater responsibilities and opportunities, and do not be surprised if before this month ends you are entrusted with something significant, a new role, a new assignment, a new level of influence, because preparation always precedes promotion, and promotion may come quietly or dramatically but when it comes from God it carries weight and purpose. And you will know it is not merely about status but about stewardship, about managing what has been given with wisdom and integrity. And integrity is crucial because the blessing you are stepping into must be sustained by character, and character has been built through every test you endured earlier this month, every moment you chose patience over anger, faith over fear, discipline over impulse, and those choices accumulated strength inside you, and now that strength is about to be rewarded with opportunity, and the shock will not only affirm God's faithfulness but also your growth. Because you are not the same person you were at the beginning of this month, you think differently, respond differently, hope differently. And that internal evolution is the clearest sign that something significant is unfolding. So as the days continue to pass, do not let impatience steal your expectation, do not let temporary setbacks convince you that nothing is changing, because beneath the surface movement is happening, alignment is forming, doors are unlocking, And before this month ends, you will have a testimony that reminds you for years to come that even when it seemed quiet, even when it felt slow, even when doubt tried to dominate your thoughts, God was working steadily, intentionally, and powerfully on your behalf, preparing a surprise that would not only shock you but strengthen you for the next level of your journey.